Welcome to How to Homeschool Radio, the show where we help new and veteran homeschoolers create a successful homeschool that works for their families. Whether you're thinking about homeschooling, just started homeschooling, or have been homeschooling for years, you've come to the right place. I'm your host, Judy Sardin, homeschooling coach, homeschooling mom of two, and author of Sardin's Practical Guide, How to Start Homeschooling. Are you ready? Let's get to it. Welcome to this episode of the How to Homeschool podcast. Today we are going to talk to Mary Jo Dean. She's the founder of Great Homeschool Conventions. I do speak at those conventions. And Mary Jo has homeschooled 3 children, and she has one child who's in computer science, has graduated from college and is in computer science, one who is attending an Ivy League law school, and another one who's about to graduate in, of all things, teaching. So Mary Jo is going to talk to you about how to overcome those feelings that you're not qualified to homeschool your kids. Sometimes we feel like we're going to mess our kids up more than they'll be messed up in the schools, and any number of things. We could have family and friends telling us that there's no way we are qualified to do it. And Mary Jo, veteran homeschooler, is going to talk to you about her experience in having those same feelings, her experience in having friends and family have those same sentiments, and really how to push through it and how to get over it and what's important when you're thinking about homeschooling your kids. So without further ado, here's Mary Jo Dean. Well, welcome, Mary. And I've already kind of given everyone an introduction of who you are. So why don't you tell us about yourself and how you started homeschooling, about just a bit about your homeschooling journey, and we'll go from there.
Okay. My name is Mary Jo Dean. My husband and I do Great Homeschool Conventions. We started Great Homeschool Conventions about 12 years ago, just out of we just kind of felt like we needed certain things that we weren't getting at other conventions. But we started homeschooling. My son, who is now 27, we started when he was 6. And we just started for a couple of reasons. Number one, we really wanted our children to have a Christian education and could not afford Christian schools. So we decided that we were going to take the leap of faith and start homeschooling. And I homeschooled for 18 years. And loved it. The hardest thing I've ever done in my life, but also the most rewarding. And did my kids like it? That's a different story. I think that they did. They all did very well. So, hopefully, I won't have to spend too much money in therapy trying to help them out, but they are doing very well. So that's kind of it. I'm a mother of 3, 27, 25, and 21-year-old. And fantastic adults, which brings on a whole different set of problems once your kids get older. So, so that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
Okay, awesome. Well, why don't you tell us, you told us about Great Homeschool Conventions, and we'll talk about that later, about why, if you're thinking about homeschooling, why attending a homeschool convention can really help. I always suggest that all of my clients visit a homeschool convention, because I believe in that, the sessions, being able to touch and feel the books. But we'll talk about that in a minute.
Okay, awesome.
So tell me why because you obviously were looking, you had public school as an option, you had the Christian school as an option. Why? Because we didn't have nearly the resources back then. Right. When it started. Why?
I think what started it was Brennan, my husband, was traveling quite a bit. So he would be gone during the weekends, but home during the week. And that was one reason, I felt like if we homeschooled, at least I could homeschool on a Saturday when he wasn't there, and then let my kids enjoy their father when he was home during the week. And also my oldest son did go to kindergarten, and I was a little disheartened by it, I guess, even in kindergarten, because I felt, as most parents do, I felt like my son was very intelligent, and I felt like we were wasting our time in kindergarten, because in kindergarten he was adding like 378 plus 492 kind of thing. And, just excelling in math. And, in kindergarten, he was learning how to count to 10. Yeah. So he was getting a little bored. So I kind of mentioned it to the kindergarten teacher. I said, hey, I'm just going to shove these like math problems in his backpack. And when he gets bored, I just said that he could let me. She goes, oh no, he can't do that. It's not been state approved. And I said, excuse me? yeah, I'm his mother. And she goes, well, it has to be like approved before we can do that.
Wow.
So that was kind of a wake up call as a mom. And I also read during that time that most kids, no matter how far they are above the other children, when they enter kindergarten, by third grade, everybody pretty much levels out. And I thought, I don't really want my children to level out. I want them to keep going, and I wanted to feed into their little brains. And so that was a couple things. We wanted them to have a Christian education. We didn't want them to, quote, level out. And it was important for us to have our children around their father as opposed to their peers. Mm-hmm. So those are three of the main factors that started our homeschooling journey. And it was scary. My family all just thought I was crazy. They're what is going on? Why are you doing this kind of thing? And then in years, I had two sisters who homeschooled for a while. And so I wasn't so weird after all. I wasn't that, I am the weird child. I do, I'm one of 8, so I am that one. And then of course, homeschooling became more popular. So, so then they kind of chilled a little bit when it came to my children's education. So.
Well, I love the story that you tell about how your son used to always color the same color, but the teacher didn't know it was his favorite color.
Yes,
yeah. Can you tell that story? I love it. It's so precious.
When my son was in kindergarten, my oldest was in kindergarten, I think that he had one crayon in his backpack, and that was green, and always sought out the green Legos. And, it's just everything that he brought home was green and colored in green. And I was a little, when we had the parent-teacher conference, I was a little taken back that she didn't realize that my son's favorite color was green. I understand that she has a lot of kids, but I still have those papers and everything is green.
Yeah.
Like we might have different shades of green, mm-hmm. but it's all green. And I just thought that was kind of like, I was just shocked that she didn't know that a little boy who never used any other color,
yes.
Not even a blue, didn't know that his favorite color was green. And that kind of, and I understand, I'm not putting down the teacher at all, mm-hmm. because she had so many, children, and they do have a lot on their plate. But at the same time, everything was green. I think he wore green probably every day too. So it was a little wake up call. Like, she doesn't really have time mm-hmm. to notice things like that. And again, nothing against her. I know, she was a great teacher and she was doing everything that she could, but yeah, his favorite color was green, dude. And she didn't even notice it. So that was a little, that was kind of a wake up call. Like, he was just a number. Mm-hmm. And again, not putting down teachers. My daughter is actually a senior in college, studying to be a special ed teacher. And I know that their hands are full, and we're kind of finding out, their hands are full, but their hands are tied. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the thing too. I think teachers, they do the best with what they can.
Yep.
And the fact that my son's favorite color was green never even entered on her spectrum. She did, it's just something that she couldn't afford to notice, I think, mm-hmm. probably. Mm-hmm. So that was the other thing. He, I think he wore green every day. It was just his favorite color. It's just weird. A little weird when it came to green.
Because I think that you make a good point, and that is, I know that there are a lot of really great teachers out there, and I always try to, temper my you should homeschool with. My mom was a career educator for 35 years. Mm-hmm. And so she knows, and she's been probably one of the most supportive people in my life with homeschooling, because she knows what it's like and the things that they have to deal with. And we have other right. teachers in our family, and surprisingly, all of them have either been very supportive, or maybe they're afraid to not be supportive to me. I don't know, because I'm that one in my family too.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's not to impugn the teachers, and we know that they've got a lot of bureaucracy that they're dealing with. So that's kind of the caveat over this entire episode.
Yes.
We're not bashing the teachers, but we know that we homeschool our children for a variety of reasons. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of people are feeling like their children aren't being noticed. And the crayon thing, the favorite color is green thing, kind of illustrates how teachers don't have the bandwidth
right.
to focus on the things that you would be able to focus on in a home environment. And
Right.
if you have, either your kid is ahead and they don't have the time, they don't have the ability, to keep that child going forward, they might give them more of the same kind of work everybody's doing in class.
Right.
So it becomes more busy work. But most of the time I'm seeing that it's not work that's really intended to get them further ahead.
Correct.
And so that's an illustration of a lot of reason. And then other people have children who are behind,
Right.
and it's the same thing. The teacher just doesn't have that time to help that child to get ahead. So if you've got one of those children who needs extra attention, it's a good reason. So there are a variety of reasons why people think about homeschooling. So, I don't have a teaching degree. Do you have a teaching degree? No. So what made you think that you could possibly home educate your children without that teaching degree?
Well, one of the things I have a neighbor, he's going to be 90 years old. And the most fascinating person I've probably ever talked with. Like, he has lived all over the country and things that he has done, and being 90 and the things that he has witnessed. And so he knows what I do. He knows that I do homeschool conventions. And so we started talking, and I told him, I said, Mr. Kirk, I only have a high school education. And the look on his face was like, what? Because he does truly love my children. And my middle son he went to high school his last 2 years, and he played football for the local high school. And Mr. Kirk saved all of his papers. And then Sawyer also walked on at Miami University. So he saves all these little papers, these little write-ups that my children have. And he just said, well, that's just very impressive. How did you do that with just a high school education? And I look back and I'm going, when I started, it wasn't, I think it was popular, but, we worked into where we had to be afraid to homeschool. We had, everybody was like, if they come to your door, and I'm going, and I thought to myself, again, I'm that one. And I thought, this just doesn't make sense. Why should I be afraid to do what the law says I can do? Why is that such a, big deal? So I kind of looked at it that way. Okay, I'm doing something legal, and I'm going to do it the best I can. And I think, with homeschooling, you learn as your children learn.
Yep.
And then, of course, I have my oldest son is a data analyst. My middle son is at an Ivy League college, law school. And my middle daughter, or my youngest daughter, the only daughter I have, is a special ed teacher. And I look at that, and, had my children not chose to go to college, that would have been fine with us too. We just wanted whatever God wanted for their lives. And I think that was a lot of it. I covered our homeschool in prayer. My husband and I just prayed, God, this is what we feel like you want us to do. We feel like we're honoring you in it. And he blessed it. My kids got to the point to where they were smarter than I, and they far surpassed me. And that's when you call in tutors.
Yes.
And my children, all three, had a math tutor who was just amazing. And so helped them with that. We did co-ops. So that was very helpful. And again, I think it's, all you have to do is just stay one step ahead of them if you can. And I know a lot of people are very intelligent. I know there are a lot of intelligent, well-educated parents out there who are homeschooling. That just wasn't me. I am the most unorganized. I'm the most unorganized person there is, but my children's education was very important. So you seek out, you seek out what's going to help them. And one of the things I love about homeschooling is my kids are self-teaching. They learned how to teach themselves. They knew before they came to me with a question, they had to try to figure it out. And so I think that helped them a lot, even in college. And, they just become self-teaching, like self-learning, self-teaching, the whole bit. And when people are like, what are your credentials? Well, I'm their mother. I'm their mom, and there's nobody who loves them more, and there's nobody on earth who wants the best for them better than I do. So that's kind of the route I took. I knew, I wanted the best for them. And again, being a Christian, it was just covered in prayer every day. And, I think as a Christian, if you do what you feel God is calling you to do, I think he's going to bless your efforts. And so that's kind of, how we did it. And, there are some days we just flew by the seat of our pants and we just hoped for the best, and I always caution new homeschoolers, it's not this fairy tale.
Oh, yes.
It's going to be one of the hardest things in life that you ever do. I mean, it's going to be hard, but I have adult children, and looking back, I would do it all again. I would do it all again. Every tear, every hard day, everything. Because within those tears, within all that hard time, there was joy that I just can't explain. And that overshadows anything. So I always try to prepare, because nobody prepared me, because, it's funny because I love how new homeschoolers are like, well, we're going to put like a desk. We're going to have desk, and this is going to be our school room, and we're going to do this. And I'm going, okay, that's awesome. But be sure that there are Kleenexes in each corner of that room, because there will be tears, not only by you, but by your kids. And so, it just worked out great for our family. The Lord just blessed, and it was just, I just loved homeschooling, and I'm such an advocate of homeschooling. So
you made a couple of points. First off, at some point your kids became smarter than you. Were they around 12 when that happened? Because I have a 12-year-old who's definitely smarter than both me and my husband.
Yes. It does happen earlier than you think with some. And, you just, as a mom and I think it is easier to homeschool them straight out of the gate, because then their learning style, then their habits, and then by the time they're 11 or 12, they can say, look, you are not, I need to go further, I need to do this, I need that. And then you can also tell by their grades and stuff. And like I said, we found a fabulous tutor, and she was actually in the co-op with us. And then we also there was a year or two that we had to pay for private lessons, which in my opinion was just so much worth it. And so, if you don't know that your kids are smarter than you are, they will tell you when they are smarter than you are. Don't have to worry about that, because they will let you know. So it's usually, especially my oldest, my middle son was a little more quiet about it, and kind of took the initiative on his own. My older son was like, hey, what are you going to do for me? How are we going to do this? So, and then my daughter was just like, the least amount of work she could do, she was totally fine with. So, but they're all different. And it happens a lot quicker than you think when they become smarter than you. So.
Yes, definitely. So talk to me about farming it out, because one of the things that people will say that they're concerned about, especially when I'm doing the How to Start Homeschooling workshop, I don't know everything. And so you just mentioned that you farm it out. So some people say, I know a lot of people, you're on one income, and there may even be some single families out there, single parent families, and the budget is really tight. And so what you just said, really, I found and believe in that sometimes it is worth it. Especially as your child gets older, the investment, my son takes a writing class right now. It's a junior high writing class. I've taught him the mechanics of writing, but the MLA style and the college style writing, because he's smarter than I am. I don't even want to go there with him. So I am paying, I think the class is $180 this semester. And I've told so he'll take it for 2 semesters. It'll be less than $400 that I spent this year. It's less than I would pay if you were in public school, how they nickel and dime you all year. Right. This class, Mary, has been the best money I've spent, I think, in my entire homeschool journey, because I watch the stuff that he has to do. Oh my gosh. I don't remember it. I was a lawyer for 20 years. I know how to write a legal brief, but I don't know how to do MLA style and on the 5-paragraph essay and all the stuff. I don't know it, and I don't want to learn it again.
Well, we were fortunate enough to have a homeschool mom. She had 7 children, only had a high school education, but writing was her thing, to the point to where when my son did go to school for the 2 years, his was an honor English, had straight A's. And it was because she had a passion for that. Mm-hmm. She had a nice high school education, but her passion was writing. My kids are phenomenal writings. And I think the co-op may have been for the whole year, $170 for the 3 of them. Oh, so, nice. You can't find a co-op like that. And again, the math tutor that we had, she wasn't a co-op. So I was able to glean from that for a long time. But also, my homeschooling, I was really cheap, and we didn't have a whole lot of money. Of course, single income families, just like, probably 97% of homeschoolers. So I didn't spend a lot of money on curriculum. So what I didn't spend in curriculum, I could make up with having a tutor. Mm-hmm. And one of the other things too, and I am that homeschool mom who was involved with the public school. Mm-hmm. They know me up there, just like they know any other parent. I led a homeschool group here in our district. I knew the county superintendent was on my speed dial. So I felt it important that, these communities knew about us, knew about homeschooling, knew that we weren't here to overtake the schools, which we probably should, but, not in a bad way. Yeah. And again, John was our county superintendent. I had him on speed dial. He and I talked all the time. Lovely man, just absolutely lovely. And but one of the things now too is high school students who excel in writing or who excel in math have to do community service, and sometimes that's tutoring. So you can actually plug into that stuff. Now, I know it's not the same in all states, but Ohio has, if your public school offers extracurricular activity, mm-hmm. whether you homeschool or your kids are in a private school, you can glean from that extracurricular activity, whether it be band, whether it be a sport, whether it be tutoring, drama, whatever it might be. Homeschoolers can, be a part of that now. So that's another option. If you feel like your child is, lacking somewhere, just contact the local school. You have to have a relationship, I think, with them in order for them to say, yeah, we'd like for you to come along or whatever. But that's an option. I know for people here in Ohio and possibly other states too. But again, I think because I homeschooled, and I would say curriculum a year for us, for the 3, may have been under $300. Mm-hmm. I used our local library continually, so usually I would be buying math mm-hmm. or something mm-hmm. like that. So, I think it is doable. You might find somebody in your church who is gifted at mm-hmm. writing or science or math or something like that would love the opportunity to teach your child. It's what you have to be resourceful. Mm-hmm. And, mm-hmm. As homeschoolers, I do think we have to kind of be out there mm-hmm. and you just have to figure out what works, mm-hmm. For your children, what financial you can, and then just kind of take that. So, I would hope that finance would not be a reason not to homeschool, because again, I used my public library like it was my own. Those girls knew me. I would call for a book, and it was funny. I remember, and I was just actually talking to my neighbor. I wanted a book. Mm-hmm. And so I requested it, and the librarian said, well, this has already been requested. And I said, oh, okay, it's a great book. And so I said, I want to request it again. Mm-hmm. And she said, well, I don't know if it'll go any further. And I said, well, that's fine. If it doesn't, then I'll just keep requesting it until I get what I want. So I was telling my neighbor about this book, and while we were talking, she Googled it, and it's at the public library. So I said, oh, that's funny. You're welcome. But it's just one of those things. And I think as homeschoolers, we do have to be kind of out there. We do have to be that quote one, who is going to just make it happen for our kids, because nobody else is. We are we are their cheerleaders. We're the ones who have to stand, with them and for them and fight against whatever comes against it. So that's why I, could justify a tutor, or, that's why we could afford a tutor, just because I did everything else so inexpensively. Mm-hmm. But they get smart real fast.
Yes, we do. I don't remember at least expressing how smart I thought I was, but I guess I'm from a different generation than my children are. So let's talk about support. And one of the things that I tell people is that one of the things you really need if you're going to be homeschooling is community. And mm-hmm. you've touched on co-op. And I talk to people who are in rural areas, mm-hmm. and where they think that they're the only people out there, and, how are they going to get their kids in front of other people so they can build their community. And I'm actually interviewing later today another lady who started a homeschool co-op. It's essentially a co-op. She thought she was the only Black or African-American homeschooler where she lived in her county. And when she started this whole thing, all these other families who also thought they were the only ones there joined it. Now she has over 100 people in her group.
Oh, wow.
It has been 2 years. And
wow.
So all of these people thought that they were the only ones. And she even has people who come from a little drive away because they're not. So community is so important, and support. And so people will ask, my spouse or my family thinks I'm crazy, just like you said. What do you say? What would you say to people who, or actually to the non-supportive spouse or family member from your experience?
I was very fortunate that my husband supported me in the homeschooling, but I know that there are many women whose husband are, they don't know that their wives, it's not that they don't think that their wives can do it. I think that they, it's just the school is what's familiar with them. Mm-hmm. And my suggestion is just to go to a homeschool convention. Mm-hmm. And with our registration, with Great Homeschool Conventions registration, a family registration actually gets your children in, their parents, and then the children's grandparents, both sets of grandparents. And even if your husband is, supporting you, it's always great to have the grandparents cheering you on too. And one of the things, I've had a couple men come up to say, hey, I was kind of apprehensive, but, coming to the homeschool convention and seeing the other children and listening to the talks and seeing the curriculum, it is just amazing. And, same thing with the grandparents, mm-hmm. sometimes grandparents think that, we've kind of lost our mind a little bit. So it's just kind of showing them that, hey, your grandchildren aren't going to be weird. And if they are, they're going to be weird, whether in public school or homeschool. Yes. So, it doesn't matter. So I always suggest that if you have a spouse that is not, and it doesn't mean that they're not supportive, they just would prefer to go in a different direction with the education of your children, just bring them. We have amazing speakers. One of my favorite is Judy Sarden. And
thank you.
But we have amazing speakers that will teach you how to teach math, how to teach science, how to teach writing, how to help that special, that struggling reader, that child that's struggling in math, how to help out the ones that are gifted. But we also have parenting track. We have, moms and dads who are speaking on, hey, we can do this, let's do this together. And I just think that, a homeschool convention should involve mom, dad, children, and grandparents. I just think, like you said, it's a community. And whether you feel like you're alone or not, if those people are supporting you and your children, sometimes that's all you need. So yeah, I definitely highly recommend a homeschool convention. I think it gives those who are apprehensive about the homeschooling, gives them a whole different perspective. Yep. And I just encourage you to do that. I think it would just open eyes to so many.
And that's how I brought my husband over, actually. I had been thinking about it, and I frankly decided I was going to do it. But to honor my husband, I wanted him to be on board as excited as I was. So we actually went to one, and the session that actually brought him over was a woman was doing a workshop on how to homeschool boys.
Oh, yes.
And our oldest is a boy, and he's quite a handful. And just she didn't talk about curriculum. She didn't talk about any of this stuff. She just really talked about how to deal with your boy who would rather be on the floor playing with his Legos. I'm in his room right now. There are Legos all over this floor. I don't come in here often. I'm like, oh my gosh. But when you have your boy who would rather be, as Andrew Pudewa says, who'd rather be building forts than writing or doing any of the things that you would like for him to do. And it was just such a wonder. It was so simple, the things that she had. It was so simple.
Right.
But it opened his eyes to really the possibilities. And then, of course, he went around the exhibit hall with me and saw the curriculum. What I found is a lot of people, no one has ever questioned me about whether the children were going to get a good education. Everyone is always questioning me about socialization. And even if I tell them, my daughter plays competitive tennis. I mean, she's 15 hours a week in group classes or with coaches. My son plays travel ball. We're all over the place. My dad's over twice a week. We're at my mother's house in another state, at least once a quarter. Despite all they have co-op where they have outside classes, they have play dates. Despite the fact that they have all this stuff going on. After I rattled all this off, the person was like, yeah, but what do they do for socialization? And I was like, are you kidding me? Were you even listening to me? So now
one of my favorite things to say is when socialization, and of course, I did it way back in the day where people were just like, weren't, like you said, really concerned with their education as much as their socialization. And I used to say, well, I could send them to school and let their peers teach them how to be social, or I can train them how to be social. And one of the things I always love saying is, my oldest son was homeschooled all the way through, and he is my social butterfly. The boy is just a boy. He's a man. Is just amazing. And just like, he went to UC and there's like 400 in a class. And I guarantee you he went to coffee or lunch with 380 of them. My middle son, who actually went to high school for 2 years, is my introvert. He could sit in a class of 30 people and not tell you anybody's name. And then my daughter's a great combination between the two. She's very social, but she does like her quiet time. And so I always loved giving that example, because my son, who was homeschooled all the way through, is my social butterfly. I mean, more social than the other two. And then my middle son, who actually did go to public school for 2 years, is my introvert. So I have concluded for my children, they're going to be what they're going to be. If they're social, they're going to be social. If they're an introvert, let them be an introvert. That's kind of, I used to, our old neighbors, my daughter's friend, she was an introvert. The little girl came to my house for years before she even spoke to me. She would come in and out of my house without even knocking, but I don't think she ever talked to me. And I just remember her mom coming to me and saying, they're thinking about holding her back because she's not speaking in public.
Oh, wow.
I said, holy cow. I said, she's an introvert. Let her be who God created her to be. Not everybody, is supposed to get up in front of a crowd and speak. Not everybody is supposed to be that. Let her be that introvert. And, the same thing with my middle son. When he needs to be social, he'll be social. I mean, he's in law school and he's going to be, in front of people speaking all the time. I've seen him give public speeches in high school, and he's truly amazing. But he is, if he doesn't have to be around people, he's okay with that. He's just that introvert. He's my introvert. And then my daughter, she likes to be social, and then she just gets to a point in the evening where, okay, she's done. She's going to go to her room and just be by herself. So children are going to be who God designed them to be, whether they're in public school, private school, or homeschool. Just let them be. We were talking about children being ADHD, and I truly think that my son, who is the introvert, had he been in school, would have been labeled that. And I look back and I think he was just a little boy. I mean, he would be he'd be 6 years old and he'd be sitting reading or writing, and he would just get the wiggles. And I would just say, okay, you need to go run. And I would make him do laps around the house until one day I forgot about it. And he's running laps around the house, and I'm standing at the kitchen, I'm doing dishes, and all of a sudden, phew, there he goes. And I thought, oh my goodness, I forgot that he's running laps. But I think that, and especially boys, you have to let boys be boys. I mean, they're going to be men someday. Let them be men when it's time for them to be men. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't start training them, but we have to let our children be children. We have to just stop the stress of, honestly, just ask kids that that are in school. It's stressful. It's stressful with friends. It's stressful with curriculum. It's stressful with tests. It's stressful. There are different stresses that kids should not even have to think about.
Yes.
So I have 3 totally different children, and had they gone to public school, they would have been the same. I think I'd have had a social butterfly, an introvert, and then one kind of in between.
Well, I think it's totally true, because I'm an introvert, believe it or not. And I was never homeschooled. I went to public school, I went to private school, I went to Catholic school, I went to all kinds of schools. And I grew up an introvert. Like, the best gift my husband can ever give to me ever is on a Saturday or Sunday, get up, take the kids for breakfast, and not come home until after he's fed them dinner. To have a whole day.
Yeah.
I love my family, I love the children, but and I could do a whole nother episode on being an introvert and homeschooling, but it can be exhausting. With the children, because I have 2 who love to talk. Oh my gosh, they love to talk. And my baby girl has, she's never gone to school. My son went to Montessori school till he was 4. So they've been homeschooling since they've been school aged, and they're both chatty Cathys. So I think, the what you said is absolutely true. You're going to be who you're going to be, no matter how you're educated. And, And that's okay, because we all went to school with some really weird people.
Yes. I'm the one. Let's just, I'm just.
So we did. We had the whole pack of kids we called the nonconformists, and at the high school. So it doesn't matter. All right. Awesome. I think this has been awesome. Mary, do you have any last things that you'd like to say, just to the mom who's really feeling a little bit insecure about whether she's going to, I'm trying to think, I've just recently, like a couple of days, probably this weekend, I got a mom says she really wants to homeschool her child. He's so sad when he comes home. Aww. And she just feels like, from a mental standpoint, if she doesn't pull him out of school, it's just going to be very emotionally damaging for him. But she's so afraid that she's not qualified. She said she doesn't have she only has a high school diploma, and she doesn't want to screw her son up. So I get stuff like this all the time. So what do you say? So last, parting shots, what do you say to that mom?
I was that mom. When it comes to your children, that they're your biggest concern. And when you feel inadequate to educate them, there's no doubt that you love them. And again, I just have to, I just have to say that I covered it in prayer. And I am that mom. I was inadequate as far as education goes. I am the most unorganized person you'll ever meet in your life. I have piles of papers, and I have a business that I run out of my house, and sometimes I just look at it and go, oh my goodness, how can I do anything? But I remember those feelings. Am I going to mess them up? Is this going to be damaging? And it is heart-wrenching. It is just, but as a Christian, I just gave it to God. And I love my children, and there's not going to be anybody who loves your children like you love your children. And I think out of that love, you will find a way to give them what they need, and if they go on to college, that's fantastic. If they become, a trade, if they have a trade, go to trade school, that's fantastic. If, whatever God wants them to be, you have to let them be what God has called them to be. And, again, looking back now that my kids are through high school, through college, it's like I can take a breath, but I remember those days. And I do try to tell homeschool moms, it's going to be hard. You're going to want to throw the towel in, but then you look in their faces and you're going, okay, I can do one more day. And they'll probably be, I truly believe, for 17 out of the 18 years of homeschooling, I would put my head on the pillow and I would just cry out to God, if you give me one more day, I will do better.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that he just kind of blessed the fact that I covered it in prayer and, gave me the ability to find those avenues to help them out where I couldn't. And it brought amazing people into their lives to help them. And, I think it can be done. I mean, you can do it. You love your children and you're going to see to it that they get the education that God wants them to have. And, just keep on keeping on. And, like I said, the days are going to be long and hard, but those years are so short and God will bless your effort. And, I just keep on keeping on. So
thank you. That's I would love talking to you, Mary, because you're always so inspirational. So that's Mary Jo Dean. She and her husband are the founders of Great Homeschool Conventions. Mary, why don't you tell us where you guys are going to be?
We have 7 conventions now, and I had to write it down actually because I was hoping you would ask me that question. And let me get my glasses because yes, I am that old. We have 7 conventions in 2020, and the first one we have is in Fort Worth, Texas, which will be March the 12th through the 14th of 2020. Then the following week, we have Greenville, South Carolina, which is March the 19th through the 21st. And then the following week, so I have 3 back-to-back.
Ooh.
Yeah. St. Charles, Missouri is March the 26th through the 28th. Cincinnati, Ohio is April 16th through the 18th. Ontario, California is June the 18th through the 20th. Jacksonville, Florida is the following week, which is June the 25th through the 27th. And then Rochester, New York is July the 30th through the 1st. And we'd love to just invite your listeners to come out, look me up. If they have any doubts, if they want to know where they should go, what they should listen to, what they should see, I'm more than happy to help them out. One of the things I want to stress too is our vendors, for the most part, write their own curriculum, so can help you out with that. And I just think that, if you just come to the convention, I just feel like it's going to give you that shot in the arm if you're homeschooling, that shot in the arm you need just to get through the end. And then if you're new to homeschooling, it's going to give you that push you need to start. So.
Yeah, you really do. And so you have hundreds of vendors there. And, I know that a lot of people like to do online research because I'm of an older generation. I need to have a paper. I need to have a piece of paper in front of me. So I've found that I've, selected something online. And then when I went to the convention, I looked at it, I'm like, no. Oh, but I like this shiny new thing.
Right.
So I love going to the convention because you can touch, see, feel, smell the stuff. But also you have a couple of different tracks.
Yes.
For your speakers.
We have a parenting track, which of course is pretty self-explanatory when we have speakers each hour that will be speaking on parenting. We also have a teen track, which is a worldview apologetic track for teenagers, kind of preparing them for college, getting ready, and if they don't go to college, getting ready for them to go outside of the mom and dad world. Mm-hmm. We also have a special needs track, and that is for your child who might be a struggling reader, might struggle with math, might have other issues. We also have a classical track. If you're interested in classical education, we have our classical speakers speaking on that. A Charlotte Mason track, which if you're, that's kind of what I use just because I was able to use the library a lot more and it was a lot cheaper and it worked really well for my children. And I think that might be it. We might have a couple other that I'm not thinking about, but we have and you don't need to go to all of them. It just kind of highlights, hey, there's a classical speaker at this time in this place, and there's a Charlotte Mason speaker, and then there's a parenting speaker, and so forth. But one of the things I want to say also about the vending hall, we encourage you to bring your children.
That's what I was
especially. if you're new to homeschooling, then that way they can see the curriculum and touch it and feel it and say, I really don't like that. Or like you said, with boys, we do have a lot of, like, they'll see the curriculum and I know that they're drawn to colors and, a lot of things. So that's one thing that I do like about the exhibit hall is if you bring your children and let them just sit and look at the books and just talk to them about the books, before you actually invest in that curriculum. And also our vendors a lot of times will offer after convention prices. So, just be sure that if you show up and say, I'm pretty sure that's what I want, I just need to think about it, then they'll, they do honor the convention prices and we'll send it to you free. Now, don't tell them I told you that, because they do like for you to buy it when you're there. But on the other note, I am that homeschooler who tried to save $1 or $2, and didn't want, I did fall into that trap about buying the wrong curriculum, and then you're stuck with it. Yep. And you're talking a couple $100s that you don't really have, that you have to use somehow because you can't, you just have to use it. So bring your children, let them kind of look at it. Let them kind of see what it's about. I think, kind of get their little motors racing a little bit about homeschooling and how exciting it is too. So.
And that's the other thing. And as I've told people that they should attend, they always ask, can they bring their kids? And it's a family environment. There are kids everywhere. Kids go with the parents to the workshop. People expect, I often have to take my kids with me. And it's really nice because while they're there all day, I just let them go. And the vendors are, everybody's used to having a lot of kids around. So the vendors are great. A lot of the vendors have stuff for the kids to do in their booth. And, my kids kind of love and hate the convention. They look forward to it because they get to play with the other vendors' kids. But they get to interact with the other kids. So it's really a family environment. So people don't be afraid to bring your kids, because
absolutely.
It's meant for the family. So awesome, Mary. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I hope that you enjoyed listening to Mary as much as I enjoyed talking to her. I just love talking to her at the conventions because she's just always such a wealth of knowledge. And what I really hope is that if you are considering homeschooling and you have some of the concerns that we discussed here, I hope that you feel a lot better. And if you have friends and family who are still asking questions, go ahead and forward this episode to them. And especially if you have friends who are considering homeschooling, but they have similar concerns, go ahead and send it to them. And as always, pop over to my website. That's www.judysarden.com/homeschool podcast. And I'll see you next time. Hey, one more thing before you go. As a valued member of How to Homeschool Radio, I want to help you and hear from you not only when you're listening to the show, but all day, every day. I have a new Facebook group called How to Homeschool, and it's a place where you can get together with other homeschooling families to get support, offer support, and interact real-time to homeschooling issues that are most important to you. If you want to be a part of this growing community, see the latest videos, and get live answers to your homeschooling questions, go to judysarden.com/homeschool podcast. Or you can just hop onto Facebook and search for How to Homeschool under groups. Drop me a note to let me know when you join. I can't wait to see you there.